Hey, Dylan.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, welcome. I'm in the kitchen, and reception is awful.
I can tell. Well, I couldn't tell you were in the kitchen. I thought you were in church based on the window
Yes,
behind you, but
but yes, the signal is show together this way this morning, and so it has been an adventure. So I make no promises other than we'll do it to piece this thing together. Um, Interesting stuff that came out of the meetings in Charlotte, and it appears that there might be adjustments in the salary cap and in DPs and U22s and all the things. And so we might be seeing some interesting changes when it comes to the future and financials in Major League Soccer.
yeah, I think a lot of this talk was always around the World Cup and whether this was going to happen before the World Cup or just after. This was the time, right? Like this was you know, the time to level up whatever we're in now. This would be a 3.0 maybe, or I don't know um what MLS version we're up to, but I think the World Cup was the World Cup was the catalyst for the league to be born, right? So now I think it's again the catalyst for the next level of it. And I'm encouraged by a little bit of, I was just reading it up before jumping on with you, and encouraged by what we're hearing, especially in terms of a salary cap or lack thereof, depending on kind of who's tweeting what. But I think uh, you know the biggest restriction I think with MLS is just that is money, right? Like we can talk all about Major League Soccer and it's competing with Liga MX, but Liga MX spends more money on players. They have a bigger uh, salary cap, and we see that from it's not always the 11, right? It's like it's 12 through 16 where they're so much deeper than a Major League Soccer team. So um, I guess that's my long-winded way of saying it's welcome change. I'm excited about the possibility. I'm a little bit sad. Maybe we pour some out for Gam and Tam, because that sounds like that's going by the wayside. So that'll be sad to lose that mechanism. But
Well, I mean, you might add a DP. You a fourth because of what we've seen with certain clubs that attempts to how do we phrase circumnavigate.
circumnavigate.
Yeah, circumnavigate. That's probably the polite way to put it. And rules maybe of absolutes. But what I hope this doesn't do is it have to be all 30? Does it have to be a simple majority? You know that there will be some folks that will not be moved by this at all. I mean, I don't anticipate, say, a DC or a Philly or a Colorado to sit there and with a rule change, sit there and go, oh, no, we've got to spend money when that's just. So I would hope that, yeah, you know that they're the best at levels of others, but at least this gives that option of doing so.
Yeah, and I think the league has been parity's been such a big part of this league, and um, that any team can kind of win it in any year. And I think when you open up the restrictions of a salary cap, um, I think it lends itself to potentially more of what we see in Europe, right? Like in the English Premier League, does we see the same kind of group of what, five or so teams, right? Like Arsenal, Man City, not so much Man United, but again, they do have the ability because they're big spenders. Chelsea, so like Liverpool, like, and you see a divide. You see tiers, kind of, right? And I don't know that I think that's not necessarily something maybe that MLS wants. They would love everybody to spend, but to your point, that's not going to be the case. So you could risk, that kind of a chasm between the contenders and the not contenders. But also you could potentially now go, I remember, feels like a million years ago now, but I remember when Alexi Lalas was GM of I don't know if it was it Metro Stars or Red Bulls. It was right around that time. And he was talking about super clubs, right? And we want to be an MLS super club. And I think now with these potential changes in salary and now you could, I think, get that, right? Like you can get the Inter Miamis, the LAFCs, to maybe be these clubs in MLS.
President and general manager general manager Metro Star 06, president LA Galaxy 06-08, during which the time so San Jose Metro Star AG. So he has done.
He also fired Bob Bradley.
3 Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. Yes, we remember these things. When you look at, and I guess we can take the All-Star game as the demarcation for the first half of the season. What sticks out to you as either a surprise or something that was not on the bingo card happened so far in this season that has stuck with you in the first half?
Well, I mean, for me, it's I think just because it was such a big break. I mean, I think generally speaking, All-Star games are that point where you mark the first half and the second half. But I think for me, it's more the World Cup break, because it was such a long break.
Yeah.
And you saw a San Jose, for example, like really play well and look like a legit team. And opposite, you saw an Orlando that looked dead in the water, right? And now, we're seeing these teams come out of the break, and it's such a long break. It's essentially almost like an Apertura Clausura type of situation in a second season now. How are we seeing the trends go from the first half of the season to the second half of the season? And I think in some cases we are. Nashville, for example, right? They picked up where they left off and they won their first game back, and they're still the Shield leaders. But now San Jose has fallen off a little bit, right? Coming out of the break, you see a Vancouver now with Berhalter's move official to Burrow. They've not looked so good coming out of the gate. So I think, and Miami has been great. It's interestingly, the team that not necessarily we thought would be St. Louis has been on fire, right? So, and now Philly has won a couple of games. So, crazy things obviously happen in this league. But to me, that's kind of the thing. Like, if we recorded this before the World Cup, it would be about San Jose. So much of it would be glowingly speaking about a San Jose and what's wrong with Orlando. And we have spoken about those things, but now it's crazy, the Griezmann effect for the purple team where, yes, he scores on his debut. They go to San Jose and blow them out. He admits, I'm not so used to these 6-hour flights and going across a whole country. And yet we see him tracking back defensively and doing a lot of the hard work to earn them a win over the Shield leaders, right? On the weekend. So, they seem now to have some new life in them. So
does the worry you about it all?
I think so, just in that they don't have a like-for-like replacement currently on their roster, right? So, like, he's not just a ball winner. He is a set piece specialist. He gets the players. He serves a terrific ball. He strikes a great ball on frame. So I think with Berhalter, you're almost looking at multiple players. It's kind of like in high school football where you'll have a great linebacker who's a running back who's also maybe the kicker. Like you've got who's or a kick returner. Like you're dealing with multiple different positions here in a game that Berhalter affects. So I think they're going to have to spend money now. To Vancouver's credit, I think they've done really good work in the transfer market under their leadership. And now this is another challenge for them, I think.
Who else are you worried about as we get into, since you're using the World Cup break as your demarcation line, who else are you worried about that is good now that might be drifting away from that here in the second half of the season? Does anybody mark that for you?
Yeah, I think Cincinnati might be that team, right? Where they were dealing with some injuries, they're healthier, but you look at like they've got a derby match, hell is real, against Columbus, and they score the first one. I thought a dubious penalty awarded for Arfston, but still it was given, and now you lose that game to your rival, who's kind of really much in transition, right? So they've not looked. They're up and down. I mean, they had that wild game against Vancouver as well, but I think defensively, I'm a little bit worried about them. That's certainly one team who we projected to be good, who's a little bit worrisome right now. Seattle certainly is I should have probably led with them. They're funny because we always talk about Seattle in like, they're like a cat. They have like 9 lives. We're like, oh, this is it. This is it for this group of Sounders. Like, they're old, they're injured, and then you count them out, and then they maybe finish second in the West. And now, now we're at that case again now where they look really, really bad coming out of the World Cup break. Again, injuries, no doubt. But is this the end of this era of Seattle? Not maybe similar to what we saw with SKC a couple of years ago, or is it again they just find another way? I will never count out the Sounders. that is for sure. So I'm more in the optimistic thought process of they're just going to figure out a way, and they're going to have a monster second half, and again be a team that you don't want to play in the playoffs.
And Brian Schmetzer, new players. I think that's the quote that is stuck with people. Signed 5 new players.
That
because
and
of
the
how
fact that he hasn't eaten.
Things. It's you look at Tacoma has done after a slow start to find their way a little bit, and you always find from young players that you can plug in immediately that know this no fear. And so I understand where he's coming from. I mean, right now, and the thing is, you look at the standings, they're 2 points out of 4th. Literally, it's like, oh, they're in 8th. But so if you have, and they've got a match in hand. So honestly, you take care of business in that match in hand. You got 16 matches played. You're a win out of 4th. And then you've got other folks that have played 2 more matches than you. So I'm not dirt on them yet. And so I would just assume and look at Tacoma and go, okay, who's next kid up, and not worry about it.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Western standings, and I pulled it up now as well, if you go like 3 down, I mean, almost all the way to the end, maybe you take SKC and maybe Austin out of it a little bit, but even if you go 3 to the line or a little bit below the line with Portland, nobody is, well, St. Louis is, sorry. St. Louis is the one exception. outside of St. Louis, nobody's on this incredible run of form, right? Like, it's there. Like, you're having your struggles while other teams are still trying to rev the engine and get the car started. So I guess it's a good time to have these struggles if you're Seattle, and it's another reason maybe not to worry so much. But there is standings or points wise, you got LAFC right now looking like that team, right? Like the world beaters, and they've got, the chip to play with a designated player at their disposal. So, they're on 33 points, tied with Vancouver and San Jose, but kind of the trending of it, you would put LAFC first, Vancouver, you'd even put San Jose down, but then like who's after them? I mean, like St. Louis is charging up. I mean, you look right now, if they win on the weekend, right? What are they? They would be at 28 points, which would, I mean, obviously other teams have to do things, but they would go right up to a home playoff spot right now, up to fourth.
And they have signed Carlo Hulspor, dropped $2.5 million over from the Turkish league, and they're turning him into a DP. If that's how you rated, more power to you. I wouldn't even think that Carlo Holm household at certain points, but if you got him that high, you got cool on you. So we'll see what the front office does with Carlo Hulsa and him being a part of St. Louis. I thought it was interesting, and this has various standings, but in looking at FCD, where they sign a homegrown, and it was a worthy sign of said homegrown. Don't get me wrong, but you sign your home, and you're going to flip him. You're gonna flip Benji Flowers to Chelsea. Literally, you sign Benji Flowers, and Benji Flowers, by all intents and purposes, all kinds of metrics, is the ish. And so he is going to buy him from you. It's like, yeah, we'll pick him up. We're going to pick him up for $3 million. Then maybe with performance metrics, it would be as much as. Finally, FCD was like, yeah, okay, we'll sign him first, and then that way you can owe us the. First, I'm like, don't go to Chelsea first. Just don't, because you'll get lost.
Don't even wear. Yeah, no, that's a point, John. Yeah, like, don't even wear the jersey, like, for the social media part of it, because you're not going to wear the jersey. You're going to be loaned out to like 6 different places.
Yeah, you're going to Iceberg, man. I mean, that is what you're going to do. But I mean, it's an interesting piece done by Dallas. They finally did sign G Flowers, but yeah, then Chelsea's like, yeah, we'll snap him up from you. I thought it's a good piece of business and a good piece of recognition. Put the Strauss jersey up instead of the Chelsea jersey. It's not going to happen.
No, but you're right about Dallas, and it's almost like flipping a house. Like, you didn't really own this, you didn't really live in it, but. You will get some profits out of it.
Mm-hmm. You look at in friend Casimir. I think that the signing is announced that earlier today. This is once again the shining example of why you're going to change what you're going to change. I wonder who going to fill in when Lionel Messi decides he's going to retire, like 74 years or whatever, because I'm not putting anything past him ever. Who the next big thing is going to be to carry them forward? I don't know it's going to be, and it's going to be interesting to try to carry, because when Alba and Sergio Busquets left, you were wondering who they were going to bring in. They bring in Berterame and in Casemiro, and then now Luis is probably going to be retiring, and then you know what else they're going to bring in. So then Messi goes. What do you do for something that seismic? That, for me, is going to be the larger thing here. You can bring in all these cool pieces and everything. Who's going to be the man, capital T, capital M, and how is Inter Miami going to continue to navigate through that? That's going to be my larger question.
I don't know. Why not Mbappe?
And
the funny thing when I say that is The funny thing when I say that is we never necessarily thought, like, if I told you 10 years ago, why not Messi? You'd have the same reaction, right? So this is Miami. Anything is possible.
Anything's possible. I feel like Kevin Garnett all of a sudden. When you look at the rest of the East, NYCFC has brought in Luigi. There's a Super Mario joke in there somewhere, and I'm not going to do it quite.
Go to Brooklyn, right?
I'm not exactly. I'm not going to bring that in yet. You look at the standings in the East, and shoot, we went through Cincinnati, and I forgot to even ask you about the brawl at the end of Hell is Real. I forgot to ask you about Dado Valenzuela, complete heel, and Tom Bryan and Nunga trying to prevent the flashing of a red card. It's like he bumped into the official and the card hit the floor. So I forgot to ask you about the end of Hell is Real.
Fun, for sure. I think and I like to, kind of almost, you're a big old school wrestling fan. Like, it almost had those vibes where Dado is like, hey, you want to go meet me over here. Meet me over here after the match. And then Fosse's like, let's go. And he sprints across. He's held back. Other guys go in. The security forces in security guards in that hallway are like, what is happening over here? Like, it made it fun. Look, we've seen these scenes. Like, if you've covered MLS long enough, like we have, we've seen these before. We've seen this in Toronto, where like old school Red Bull Toronto, like I think Josie Altidore was involved, right? I think Sasha Kleshkin was involved. Crazy things happen in these corridors sometimes. But we're seeing like MLS is at least hoping that now the World Cup fever, the World Cup buzz brings new eyes to the league, right? So now imagine if you're one of those new fans, you're like, Hell is Real. What a cool name is this? I'm going to check this match out. And now you see this at the end, you're like, let's go. Mm-hmm. This is my league. I want to watch this if this is happening every week.
Oh, okay. Skew. What match do you think this weekend will have the closest response to that battle royale that we saw? If you had the opportunity, so you know what, this would be the one to sit there and stare. We got Leagues Cup coming up corner, obviously, but who would it be?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cheap one, I think, to grab, but it's the most obvious. It's the last match of match day 19, right? It's Portland and Seattle. It's Cascadia. It's Cascadia in Portland, and Portland just embarrassed Seattle, right? Seattle, they're a wounded animal right now. They're not eating, right? It's like they're not shaving. Like they're just like they're gonna come to Portland. If they're not gonna win the match, they're gonna win the fight. So I think that's the one that you circle. Plus, Portland matches in Portland of significance, which this one is. I think it's such a great vibe, a great feel, a great look, just in general. Again, so like if you're kind of indoctrinating someone into Major League Soccer, that's the one that you tell them, hey, watch Portland, Seattle, and enjoy that one for sure.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'm even thinking Philly, Atlanta.
For sure, yeah. Vancouver, LAFC. Look, you've got the big names there as well. I think that just for soccer match wise, I think is an interesting one. But Philly, Atlanta could have some fireworks,
especially with two teams at the bottom of the Eastern Conference and the chippiness factor that's to that. I'm trying to. As I'm scanning myself, and I'm trying to sit here and see. Okay, maybe this one, maybe this one. Well, Columbus and Messi friends might be interesting. I wonder if Mr. Messi's back for that one. I'm also seeing developments at Dylan Butler that things are starting to finalize date.
Yeah, this month. Yeah,
otherwise
July.
known as Etihad Park gets to open.
Yeah, July next year. I just passed by Sunday. Looks great. I think it's going to be, dare I say, the crown jewel of the league. They're going to do it different than I think anybody else has. I think when we've seen a lot of these stadiums go up, I think we've seen some cookie cutters a little bit to this point, and I think this one's gonna have a different look, have a different feel. Your only hope, I think, is that it corresponds with like a big name signing that would get a lot of the people juiced up to want to go there.
Who do you think it's going to be?
Yeah, great question. The thing about New York, and it's cliche to say it, but it's true in terms of soccer, is it's such a melting pot that you can throw that pin needle on any spot in the globe of a high level player, and that there's a big fan base there, right? Like even on that 7 train alone, like you can bring in a Colombian, you could bring in an Ecuadorian, right? You could bring in a big Mexican player. People are on Twitter. Everyone's trying to lay claim to a Mo Salah, because there's these reports that there's a Major League Soccer team interested in signing him. There's a big Egyptian population in New York City. So, could it be someone inside of the CFG world? I mean, I don't know. I think it's been a while since we've seen NYCFC spend big. I think they'll do it the right way, but I think this is the time you were waiting for the new building to open. I think to make that big move.
Yep, and we will try and see what that's going to. I'm thinking they might even try and re-sign Tati Castellanos. That's me. What's up with MLS Soccer?
Yeah, we're all starring tonight, right? After skills last night, and then Saturday back for a full slate of 15 wonderful matches. So
and Portland and Seattle at 10:45 or 10:55 probably Eastern time because of post-game show and stuff. As always, my friend, it's great to see you. Thanks for putting up with here in the office. And we will catch up with you soon, and we'll catch up with you on the flip side as we head to Leagues Cup. It's great to see you.
I don't think you could say crap in church with the stained glass window behind you there. So
crap.
You might have to hit confession right now.
Crap. I said, be safe, my friend. We'll see you soon.